Today we're going to make shelves out of plywood. I got some sanded pine plywood from Home Depot and I clamped a straight edge down to it so that I could get nice straight cuts using my circular saw. This was my first time testing out the new Ryobi 18-volt brushless circular saw. It's by far the biggest and most powerful cordless circular saw that they've made. This shelving system can be made in a variety of different sizes and configurations, but I'll post drawings of the version that I did on my website. I took some of the 2-inch wide plywood strips that I had cut and I glued them together in pairs. These are going to be the structural spines for the shelving system, so I made sure to clamp them securely together and to let the glue cure for the appropriate amount of time. I cut shelf boards at a variety of different widths, so to make the supports for them, I'm simply going to measure off triangles that are as long as the shelf boards are wide. I used some sandpaper to round over all the edges of these triangular pieces. Once the glue had fully cured, I used my orbital sander to sand down the edges of the plywood nice and flush. I used my circular saw to trim the edges of the glued up plywood and to give them a nice little 45-degree angle at the corners. This is just for aesthetics and it has no specific function. I then screwed the glued up plywood to these 3.5-inch wide plywood strips. Even though I'm using finished screws which have a very minimal appearance, I wanted to make sure that there's only a few screws going in from the front and that the majority of the connection was coming in through the back. I used my center stud finder to find the location of the 2x4s behind the gypsum board. In most walls, structural supports are every 16 inches on center. I'm going to place my plywood supports every 32 inches, so I'm hitting every other stud behind the gypsum board. I used finished screws to screw through the 3.5-inch wide strips of plywood, through the gypsum board, and into the stud behind. Now that the wall supports are set, I can now mark the locations for the cutouts in the shelf boards that will allow them to sit flush to the back strips of plywood. I used a drill and a jigsaw to cut out these notches. I screwed the plywood triangles to either side of the glued together plywood spine using finished screws. My cuts aren't always perfectly perpendicular, so I used a speed square to make sure that the shelf brackets were at the right angle. What's cool about this system is how adaptable it is. You can make shelf boards of all different widths. I plan on using one of the shelves as an actual desk, so I cut out a section of the shelf above it, screwed the short pieces down to the triangular supports, so I can turn the shelving system into a mini home office center. We were actually working on some smart home projects for Home Depot, and we used this shelving system to sort of demonstrate how you can automate your home using the Amazon Echo system. What's cool is that I can set up the voice-activated Alexa system and then dim my lights or raise the temperature of my loft, all without leaving my workstation. For more detailed instructions, check out my website, and if you want to see what I'm working on next, be sure to follow me on Instagram. To get ideas for a whole bunch of other DIY projects, be sure to check out Ryobi Nation. We got a whole bunch of other DIY videos, so don't forget to subscribe and have a look at some of the other projects. Thanks, bye.